Hey TV fans, this is Greg the TV Genius, and I am a TV genius. Today we're going to be talking about the Walking Dead comic book, Compendium 2. I'm so excited. This will contain spoilers, by the way, from Volume 9, Here We Remain, to Volume 14, No Way Out. So if you don't want any spoilers on the comic and you haven't read them yet, do not watch this video. Wanted to start off talking about some of my favorite moments from the comic book Compendium 2, The Walking Dead, and a little bit about my favorite characters. Now, my favorite character from the show and the comic book is Rick. Always gonna be Rick, no matter what happens in the comic or the show. Rick is my favorite character, but I'm really starting to enjoy Andrea's character in the comic. I think she's following Rick closely as my second favorite character easily, and I really love her, and I want to talk a little bit about that today. But first, let's talk about some of the more shocking moments that happen in Compendium 2. I think one of the more shocking moments in Compendium 2 is Carl's little outburst to his dad when his dad falls asleep and doesn't wake back up after the governor destroys the prison and kills Lori and Judith, and everything's just to hell, and Rick and Carl are on their own, and they're sleeping in a house, and Rick is out. Carl's trying to wake him up, and he just can't wake him up. It's like a coma, and Rick's not doing good. He's got a gunshot to the abdomen, and he's been beat to hell, and he's been forced out of the prison, and he took some antibiotics that are probably expired, and Carl does not know what to do. He is not happy. He's screaming, "Dad, what am I going to do without you? I don't know." And what I thought was amazing is how well Chandler Riggs portrayed Carl from the comic to the TV show. Now, if you've read the comic book, in this part, Carl just loses it on his dad. Well, first he's like, "I can't take it, don't die, what am I going to do?" And then walkers end up outside. He goes kill the walkers, just like that scene in the show. It's so cool. When he comes back, he's so mad at his dad, and he just tells him how it is, tells him you couldn't protect anyone, and it's just like the scene from the show. Chandler Riggs did such an amazing job portraying Carl. Now, Carl is a bit older in the show than he is in the comic books. In the comic books, he starts off 7. He's about 8 or 9 right now. He doesn't exactly know because they've skipped his birthday. One of the next most shocking parts is definitely in Fear of the Pumped Hunters, and it's another Carl moment. Carl is changing right now. He's killed Shane, he's had to kill walkers, he's done things, and Carl is at this point where it's either do something for the group or just be a kid, and Carl doesn't want to be a kid anymore. He's ready to step up and be a part of this group at 8 years old and start protecting them and doing what needs to be done. He wants to be a leader just like his dad. And Andrea and Dale in the comic books adopted 2 twin boys that belonged to a man named Alan from the beginning of the show that died from an amputation from his leg from a zombie bite, and it didn't really work out. He died from the infection or blood loss or something, they don't exactly know, but it did work out for Dale. He was missing a leg at this point. But anyway, they adopted 2 twin boys. One of them's name was Billy, and Billy was starting to go crazy in the comic books, kind of like the season 4 of The Walking Dead. The 2 girls, Lizzie and Mika, that went crazy, and Lizzie that was cutting up rabbits and then killed her sister. Well, Billy kills his brother in the comics, which was a pretty shocking part. But I think one of the more interesting parts was later when the group was arguing about what to do about Billy, and Carl overheard, and wanting to be leader and wanting to step up and make the hard decisions that nobody else can do, he snuck into the van where Billy was sleeping, and he shot him, killed him dead. It was pretty brutal, and it was a pretty defining Carl moment, definitely. I think when Carl becomes a man in the TV shows, it's when he has to kill his mother. And at 8 years old in the comics, it's hard to say that Carl has become a man, but he has somehow. After his mother died, and after the governor killed her and Judith, he stepped up and became more of a man and thought, well, I don't need Rick, and I need to become more of a leader, and he went and he killed Billy for the good of the group. He snuck in, killed Billy, and Morgan saw it. Morgan saw it, but he didn't say anything right now. He says something later to him, which I thought was very interesting, right before Morgan dies in the comic books. And Carl doesn't take this well, which is a good sign. Carl isn't a sociopath. He has a lot of remorse for what he did to Billy. He said Billy was his friend. He finally confessed to his dad. He couldn't hold it in anymore. It was just a really sad scene to me. I almost cried reading it. I mean, this comic book is just so detailed and goes so in depth, and it even shocks me and scares me sometimes for the characters. It's considered horror. On the back in the corner, if you look in the corner, it's labeled horror. So I think they do such a great job with a graphic novel like this. The next, probably most shocking part of the comic series up to this point is in Fear the Hunters, when Dale goes off to die of a zombie bite and the hunters grab him, and Chris tells him this whole big thing before revealing to him that they have eaten his leg. Wow, what an amazing scene. Now, immediately Dale is shocked and overcome with this, oh my god, what's going on? And then he starts to laugh. And the hunters are like, what's going on? What are you doing? And he's just laughing and laughing, calling them stupid and idiots. And he tells them, I've been bitten, you idiots. Tainted meat. Tainted meat. It was awesome. I loved it. They killed it. From the comic to the show, they killed it. Now, I wish they would have kept it Dale. I didn't like the version of Dale in the TV show that they had for him, but I did enjoy the comic book version of Dale, and I wish they would have kept it Dale in the comics, or in the TV show. But in the TV show, I think they did a fantastic job doing that scene with Bob as a substitute, and I just think that was an awesome scene overall in the comics and in the TV show. The next part that we're going to talk about, and probably one of the coolest parts in the comic, is in chapter 13, Too Far Gone, when Rick's been trying to assimilate into Alexandria, just like in the TV show. He hasn't been trying too hard, but he has been trying to be constable and, you know, to kind of fit in, and he's kept a gun on him, and he finds out that Pete's been beating his son and his wife. So he goes and he tries to talk to Jesse first. Jesse isn't hearing it. Well, he goes then and tries to talk to Douglas, which is the leader of Alexandria in the comic books. Douglas isn't hearing it, just like Deanna wasn't in the show. So after doing both of these things, Rick's like, well, I'm the law in here, so I'm just going to take it upon myself and go over there and beat the crap out of Pete, which he does. And Pete and him go through the window, just like in the TV show, which I thought was awesome. But one of my favorite parts in the TV show and in the comic is when Rick pulls the gun and tells Alexandria how it is. And Andrew Lincoln portrayed Rick from the comics so well in that scene. I just think they did such an amazing job at changing the dialogue up a little bit and making it a little bit better from the comics since they had that chance. And I thought the comic was just an amazing part, and then they did it on the TV show and they just did it so much better. I couldn't believe it, because sometimes they just don't pull it off when they try to take a scene from the comic and try to make it awesome. It just doesn't work for them. But this case definitely worked. And right now, at this point in the show, we've encountered a group called the Wolves. And about the same time in the comic, there's a group called the Scavengers that comes to Alexandria. And he comes to the gate, little pig, let me in. And Rick's like, I don't think I'm going to do that, friend. And they put a sniper on Rick, put a red dot on him. He's like, I think you know what that is. And then all of a sudden you hear blam, and the sniper dot's gone. And he goes, it looks like my sniper got yours. Awesome scene. Rick and Andrea are amazing. Just an amazing duo. They've worked so well together, and I'm so excited to see where they go with her in the comics. I hope they keep her alive for a long time to come, because Andrea is definitely one of my favorite characters from the comic. In the show, I hated Andrea. I thought she was awful. And I start reading the comics, and Andrea is amazing. Just one of the best characters, if not the best character besides Rick. Now, in the show, Rick kills Pete at his little meeting to kick Rick out. He kills Pete there because he accidentally kills Reg with the sword. Now, in the comic book, they're holding a small funeral for one of the runners who died on a run, and Pete comes up after Rage talking to himself in the house, and he pulls the trigger and kills Pete. Now, his wife, Jessie, and brings her son Ron over to stay with him. Now, while Ron's upstairs supposedly sleeping, but he's actually telling Carl that your dad killed my dad and talking crap to him, and Carl turns around and tells him, yeah, my dad's killed a lot of people, and so have I. I thought that was awesome. But anyway, one of the coolest things that Rick does is he has her stay at his house and he bangs her. Rick is the shit. If you don't think Rick's the shit after that, something's wrong with you. But if Rick can kill someone and then bang their wife immediately after, you a pimp. I don't care. But the next most shocking part to me, now it's not a big part and people don't talk about it a lot, but I loved it. It's in chapter 14, No Way Out. It's when Rick, Jesse, Ron, and Sophia are in the house and they're talking about going back to the wall and help with the breach that's happened because the zombies are just pouring through. They're about to walk out the door and Maggie comes through the door and she's like, shut off the lights, take a look outside. And they look out the window and the next is just this awesome picture of all these zombies just walking around Alexandria. I just thought that was awesome, and they shocked me with it. I just wasn't expecting it to happen like that. I thought they were going to get back and at least keep the hole plugged for a little while before they had to retreat. Awesome. Rick decides to take Jesse and Ron out of the house, and he pulls a zombie inside, chops him up, says this has worked before. Him and Glenn did this in Atlanta, which they did. They covered themselves in zombie guts and walked through the zombies. And he does this with Carl, Ron, and Jesse. Maggie and Sophia decided they weren't going to try it. Glenn is trapped outside of Alexandria at this point. Well, they go out and they're trying to get through them, and Douglas, the leader, starts tripping out and firing his gun and shooting all these zombies and riling them up. Well, they start to attack Ron. Jesse won't let Ron go. She was holding Ron's hand and with one hand and holding Carl's hand with the other and would not let either of them go. Well, Jesse starts to get eaten by zombies. Rick's like, what do I do? What do I do? Carl's like, she won't let go, Dad. Help me. I don't want to die. So Rick takes his axe and just hacks her hand off. Oh my God. Brutal. It was awesome. What an amazing scene in the comics, and I hope they do a good job bringing that to life on the small screen, if that's what they decide to do with the TV series. Now, you've got to think of the TV series and the comics as different universes because they are definitely completely different. The storyline is pretty much the same, the story arcs, but the characters and the central plots are just completely different. So, let's move on. One of the most shocking points in the whole entire comic series, if not the most shocking points, is when Carl gets shot. His eye is taken out, just bam, huge chunk of his head missing. Oh my God, just awesome. Amazing splash page. It was just an amazingly well written and well drawn part. It was awesome. I loved it. I was so shocked to see that happen to Carl, and I'm sad that it did, but Carl lives and his eye heals, but he's got this huge scar, gaping hole in his face, and Carl is going to be different after this. I know it. And Rick changes as well. He wants to start becoming a better person and having a future for Carl. That was Compendium 2, The Walking Dead. If you guys want to read it, I suggest going to Books A Million and picking up a copy of Days Gone By, Volume 1. It is awesome. Check me out next time and like and subscribe.